even without incentive token, you're going to earn more fees, but you gain in personal loss because less people are risking their coins. So there's more volatility, and you're actually losing money because you're earning your fees a little bit here. But if you would have just held your coins instead, it'd be worth a lot more money. That's what impermanent loss means. Impermanent loss, right? It has nothing to do with incentive token. The incentive token is what it is. It's its name.
So where does that APY come from? Those fees come. Those fees go where?
Fees come from. So the fees are supposed to be paid in tokens.
Which token?
The tokens that are. So like if you're holding PLS and HEX, your fees are in HEX and PLS. The incentive token is above and beyond.
So you would get HEX automatically drafted to your wallet by itself, just coming in?
So I don't know how it works exactly. I haven't figured it out on PLS, but it actually is part of the. I just even read it on the PulseX site where it said, the fees plus the incentive token.
So all the fees that get generated for any swap on PLSX goes to a fee to address, and then this fee to address will be buying up ink to send to everybody that's providing liquidity.
That's new.
It's been talked about ever since.
All right, now I got to go back and I got to look into this, because how can it be a fork of that swap and then all of the... See, this is a good conversation. Even I'm learning. And I mean, if that's true, I got to really dig into it now.
Yeah, because based off what you're saying, you're basically saying if we're holding LP tokens, just based off holding it, we don't even have to provide it into the liquidity pool, we will gain fees, right? But you have to put in it. You have to put that liquidity token into the pool to gain those fees of ink.
Well, that's what it's for. You know what I mean? Yeah. I mean, that's what in the V2. That's what you had to do. So you got a PHLP or a PLP or a LP or whatever, a PLP, but then you had to actually put it into the pool to earn those fees.
And that pool only gives you ink.
I look at this now, because it just goes against what what we forked it against, and the incentive was supposed to be above and beyond. Yeah, I don't know. You got me thinking now, and I don't want to talk about it now if I'm wrong. So. But it matches, because I've been tracking my V3 liquidity pools. I've been trying to figure out where the fees are and stuff, whatever. So I don't know. I got to look into it. I appreciate you bringing that up.
You guys still thoroughly
It would
confused?
answer some questions that I had. Yeah, it would answer some questions that I had, because I've been trying to figure it out with this V3 every other day. I've been tracking stuff and been trying to figure out where those extra fees are. So.
Yeah, I sound a little confused. Little confused about LP and buy and burn and what is incentivized and what is farming. So I thought I'd hop up and see if I could help.
LP is liquidity providing. You're providing the actual pools of tokens that people trade against. So like if somebody's trading, like you said,
no, listen. Oh, I know, but I said that I would try and help you guys understand.
Oh yeah, by all means, please. Go ahead, Nickelback.
So when you either create or join an LP on PulseX, instead of like with Uniswap, like with a Uniswap V2 pool, all of the PLP tokens come to you. In PulseX, what's going to happen is that say you're getting I'm trying to think of how to break this out so that the math works. Never do math live while you're driving. Basically, a small amount of those PLP tokens. So like I said, backing up a little bit, I said when you join a plain Jane Uniswap V2 pool, like you get all of the PLP that represents the amount of the two tokens that you just deposited. So that's your claim to redeem those tokens later in whatever ratio they're in later. If nobody buys or sells in between the time you added liquidity and you remove liquidity, you get exactly out what you put in. So the difference, so your PLP is an ERC20 that's issued by the swap contract, and that's like your claim receipt. To segue just for a second on how that's different from V3, Uniswap V3 uses a similar swap contract. Well, they use a similar deposit contract, but instead of all of the customers able to come up to that swap contract and buy or trade between the two tokens at whatever ratio it's at, each LP decides uniquely by themselves what ratios they're willing to swap at. So that's why all the tokens look like they're going to the same pool, because they are, but each individual LP's tokens that they hold the claim NFT to are bound on whatever ratio they decided when they created that LP. So say, for instance, I've got Hex and USDC, and I'm not willing to sell my Hex until it's, 0.5 USDC per Hex. So that'd be, 50 per Hex, give or take a little bit of slippage. And I want, but I'm also willing to have all my Hex sold by the time it reaches $1. So that's what I would put in. I would put in the low limit of, 0.005 USDC per Hex, and the high limit of 1 USDC per Hex. So once people push those ratios up to where Hex is now trading at 2-to-1 with USDC, it would start using my liquidity. So that's the reason why they use NFTs. It's because you're defining a unique range on the price continuum, or the ratio continuum, where you're willing to start selling and end selling. And because it's unique, that's why it has to be a unique token. So, and that's what an NFT is. It's a non-fungible token. Fungible tokens are tokens that are all equal. So like Hex, all Hex is fungible with each other. 1 Hex in your address is equal to 1 Hex in my address. They're all worth the same. Non-fungible tokens are things that are unique and can't be necessarily traded one with each other. So because a Uniswap V2 pool doesn't have that concentrated liquidity like a V3 pool, a Uniswap V2 pool doesn't need unique claim receipts like V3 does. That's why Uniswap V2, the swap contract, issues an ERC20, which is a fungible token standard. All the tokens are interchangeable with each other. Another quick fun fact there, if you wanted to, I don't know, most people don't, but a PLP token is just an ERC20. So like what we saw with Famous pairing those two LP tokens together, I mean, they're just ERC20s. You can pair them together. You can send them. If you decide that, maybe you're not so sure about your address security and you have a bunch of LP tokens in it, you can just send those LP tokens, just add the swap contract for that ERC20 address, send those LP tokens to another address, and boom, now that other address is the LP. Or if you wanted to completely sell your entire position, you could sell your entire stack of LP tokens to somebody else. So I'll take a break there in case anybody's got questions before I move on.
So you've practiced the V3. So what my question is, will you be able to swap that PLP for another token if there's not going to be a value for it? Or
it's reasonable to say that all PLPs have value, because the PLP is the claim receipt for share of the tokens in the contract.
Yes, it does. So you can basically just use that same value and then just enter into another token, but it doesn't matter if that PLP is one of those pairs that you're swapping into.
So you're saying, like, say I add to the PulseX pair, and now I've got the PLSX, I've got the PLP that's issued by the PulseX swap contract. And then if I want to take that PLP and swap it for Hex, which is not in that pair at all, is that what you're asking?
Yes.
Yeah, you could do that. It's just really hard for people, because now instead of just the ratio between two things, you're actually looking at the ratio between three things, because you have to know, in order to understand if you're getting a good deal in that swap, you have to know the ratio of that PulseX pool related, and how that stacks up against the value of a Hex.
That's a lot of arbitraging.
Yeah, you're kind of creating so that PLP token is definitely a derivative. I don't know enough about derivatives to define like what kind of derivative it is, but you're extracting the value of those two tokens paired together, because remember, like I said, a PLP is just a claim receipt. It's your claim on your portion of the liquidity at whatever ratio it's at when you decide to turn in those PLP and burn them, plus any fees that your portion of the fees that are also in the pool.
All right, my question. So on PulseX, I was taught that we are receiving not only the fees from the pool, but above and beyond incentive token. That's not true anymore?
It's true for an incentivized pair. So like not every single pair is going to be awarded the incentive token. Usually on a DEX, they want to incentivize things that have a good reason to be incentivized, like things that are paired with stablecoin, because LPs usually take more impermanent loss when they're providing liquidity against a stablecoin, because the stablecoin doesn't move in value very much. Whereas, if you LP in, say, Hex versus Pulse, now you have the opportunity, it's possible for the value of Hex to go up and the value of Pulse to go up. Whereas with the stablecoin values, that by design, you don't want your stablecoin value to move. So that's where that would be a good example of a pool that they would want to incentivize, to try to get people over the hesitation of knowing, hey, as soon as I join this pool, I take the risk of impermanent loss.
Right. So in the pool that he was talking about for the PLP, he was saying that, now when I said V3, I was just talking about version 3 of testnet, by the way. I wasn't talking about LPing. But on the version 2, on the PulseX, you provide a PLP. Now, when you trade that PLP in, you're trading in for, like, if there's been more trades, now you've earned a percentage more. So you will see it more. You'll see those fees added to the LP. Is that correct? Is that how PulseX works?
Yeah. So
like
say
on Uniswap, you actually see them, right, or whatever. But
so say for instance, you walk up to the pool and you join while the ratio is 3 PulseX per pulse. And then the price rockets up to 10 PulseX per pulse. And then people realize that that's too much. And then they start selling it back down, and they sell it all the way back down to your starting point of 3 PulseX per pulse. And you decide, okay, I'm back neutral. I don't have any impermanent loss because now my token ratios went way out from each other, and now they're right back at where I joined the pool. I'm going to exit. What you're going to exit with is your exact amount, roughly speaking, the exact amount that you deposited in each token, plus your share of 0.22% of all the fees of all the trading that was done on that, pool. So it's not like you get 0.22% of the volume. You get your little slice of that 0.22%.
Right. So does that make sense to the person I was talking about earlier? The incentive token is above and beyond that.
Yeah, if you want to.
So you get that 0.2 in PLS and PLSX.
Yeah, depending on what so the customer is they want to whatever the customer brings to the pair, That's what they pay their fee in. They're 0.3. Because remember, the customer is paying 0.29, right? So it's slightly cheaper than the traditional Uniswap 0.3. So they're paying 0.29, and out of that 0.29, 0.22 goes to all the LPs, and 0.07 is peeled off for the buy and burn. So that's like to kind of bring it all back around to the beginning. Like, how does the buy and burn work? It's because, you know, when you join a Uni V3 pool, like I said, I get 100% of the PLP tokens that I generate by adding my LP. I add Pulse and PulseX, and you know, if I were to use a Uni V, you know, go over to a Uni V2 swap contract, I would add Pulse and PulseX, and then the contract would issue me the PLP ERC20. You know, it would issue me 100% of them. But in PulseX, you get to keep. Well, that would be, again, trying to do math on the fly. You would get the tokens that represent 0.22, and the buy and burn gets the tokens that represent the 0.07. So that's why earlier,
right?
Yeah,
In the form of an LP, right? Yep. So now everything makes sense.
Yeah,
Thank you. I appreciate that.
So you get it in the form of the PLP token or the actual asset?
You don't get the asset until you turn your PLP in, which is why earlier one of you was saying that when you ran the buy and burn, I'm assuming you went and looked at the transaction and it looks like PLP is getting burned. That's because it is. What's happening when you click buy and burn, you're telling the contract, hey, I'm willing to pay the transaction. You provide, you know, you let go of your, you know, part of your 0.7%. Well, actually what it does is it probably does a sweep through all of the pools. And remember, like every single pool, the buy and burn is given that 0.07% representation of the PLP. So when you click buy and burn, it's probably turning in all of those LPs. All of those LPs are getting burnt, and then the tokens are, you know, when the LP gets burnt, the swap contracts release the fees, and then, you know, those whatever token is dumped into the buy and burn address gets, you know, then spent against all those different pairs to, you know, buy PulseX out of those pairs and then send that PulseX to the burn address.
So think of it as a flash loan. When you click that button, it does everything in the same block kind of thing, right? So it turns the LP up to 0.707% of fees. That LP gets turned into the HEX and PLS that it's worth. Then the HEX and PLS get sold for PLSX, and then the PLSX gets sent to the burn address, all in that little button click.
Right. So it sends the pulse.
You know, yep.
It sends the pulse to the PulseX pair, and it sends the PulseX. I'm not really sure what it does with the PulseX if PulseX is netted in fees, because, you know, you can't have a PulseX pair. I'm assuming that any PulseX that's harvested in fees just gets sent straight to the burn. That's what makes sense.
There you go. I got clarification that helped me because I had a couple things I was wondering about. The V2, you actually cleared up tremendously with me, because most liquidity providing I provide is V3. That's what I got experience with, but now you gave me the knowledge I needed for the V2 to apply to the PLSX. So I appreciate that, Nickelback.
You're welcome. Yeah, is anybody confused about? I know that was quite a bit to put out. You know, any confusions about like what's incentivized and what's not, and how the buy and burn earns the fees to burn, and how those fees get used to buy and burn?
Well, hello everyone, and thank you, Richard and his team.
Hey, Bob Legat, I just want to know why the ink that's received is so low, even though I know that I provided a significant amount for the buy and burn. It's like, why is it such a very fractional amount for that ink received?
Well, buy and burn and ink are two separate things, right? Or are people that the people that run the buy and burn, are they I've never run it myself because it's such a competitive thing. People are constantly hitting that.
So what happens is let's just say like it'll show like an LP of between PLS and PLSX, right? And then it'll say it was $1,000 worth that LP, or let's just say it was $5 worth. Then so when you click it, and it says in the block, it says that you receive. I mean, it doesn't tell you what you receive, but you have to check it, see how much you receive for PLS. Like I call it a bounty. But it kind of shows you how much is being burned and what LP it was, and how much PLSX is going to be burned. It kind of just shows you that. So when you click it, you confirm it, you pay the PLS to do the transaction, and then the bounty gets sent to your address. At the same time, it ends up being removed from the list. I forgot. I'm sorry. I'm multitasking. I forgot where I started there, or what I was trying to get to.
Do you remember what what denomination is the bounty? Is that incentive token? Is it PLS? I don't see how it could always be PLS if it's different pairs that you're harvesting.
Yeah, it was just a test. It was just PLS and PLSX, just playing around with it, and it said the ink, plus fees that we receive. And just an example, I'm talking about 100,000 PLSX for PLS. And then once you harvest it, it was like, it was so minuscule, it wasn't even funny.
We have to remember that you can't. Well, it doesn't make sense to over incentivize the bounty on the buy and burn button, because it's like, what skill do you really need? Like what hard work or labor or effort do you really go to, other than you're willing to give up a small amount of pulse to run the transaction? Like, it's not really like a high value action, so it doesn't. Unless for some reason people just get bored with it and stop doing it, and then the fees kind of like build up over a while. So it's like, yeah, there needs to be some reward there for somebody willing to click the button, but it doesn't have to be a really big reward. I wasn't sure if either what, like I said, I've never run the bounty because I don't spend that much time on testnet, and I've heard from what I've seen, it's constantly emptied. Like, people are always clicking that button.
It's a percentage.
I just don't know,
of the actual, it's a percentage.
What's the bounty?
You get like a percentage of the bounty in PLS. So like I earned like when I was doing the V2 testnet, I was earning PLS every time I clicked on that. No matter what it was, I was paid in PLS. And it was like a percentage of the actual bounty, or the LP, or whatever it was, dollar-wise, or whatever. So I don't remember. It was so long ago. But yeah, it was every time I burnt, I was paid PLS. And it turned out that it would be the bigger the LP, the more PLS I would earn. So there was like things I burned where I personally earned like between 9,000 and 10,000 PLS. And then there was some where it cost me like, a fraction of a PLS, and I only earned 5 PLS, right? Because I burned a really small LP position worth of LP, right? So depending on the size, so if somebody did a large trade, like a multi-million-dollar trade, you would see an LP, a percentage, a 0.07% of that trade as an LP. And then you would earn a percentage in PLS for that bounty, for that burn. So yeah, you can earn a lot of PLS on them, depending if you're lucky enough to catch the big ones. I mean, you can pick, like when you refresh the page, the list will come up, and you can immediately click on the largest one that you see there, and you will earn the most PLS on it if you're the one that actually gets the confirmation for it. So yeah, but you're right. There's a lot of people that are doing it. There's people that are creating scripts for it. So
It's just interesting that it's always PLS. I just wonder what the input
I
for
know.
that PLS is. So, like, it would make sense. It'd make total sense if you got paid out in like incentive token. Like, okay, we're going to inflate. We're just going to tie the incentive token contract into the buy and burn, and then anybody that clicks the button gets. We'll just inflate a little bit of incentive and pay them out that way. But for PLS, I wonder what the input for that PLS is.
Yeah, I don't know.
Because it doesn't make sense that because there's lots of pairs that don't have PLS in them, right? So, like, if you think about it, for the PulseX buy and burn to work, everything has to be paired to PulseX. Like, someone will have to make, for every time that a random person comes and pairs token X with token Y, well, now token X plus PulseX has to be created, and also token Y plus Pulse. That way, the fees generated in token X and the fees generated in token Y can be used to buy and burn PulseX.
That's why they believe that the AMM bot will all PLSX with everything more than PLS because it will need to because of the burn function. So, or else the OA or whatever will have to,
Yeah, I don't know if that's automated or if it's got to be done manually. For testnet v3, there was 3,100. Well, when I first looked, there was 3,145 tokens in the AMM bot address, and now there's 3,144. I didn't go through to figure out what went where.
But yeah, I mean, if you guys are excited about anything, maybe that's what you need to be. Day one's maybe for you guys is sitting there clicking buttons, being like, burn, 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 burn. You guys keep on trying to trade. I'm going to keep burning, right? Burn your PLS that way.
Oh yeah, one thing I forgot. So like I said it just a little bit, but when you hear somebody talk about farming, then they're farming for the incentive token usually. Like, so that's usually talking about people that, for instance, join the PulseX pair. They get their LP token as their claim receipt, and then instead of just letting that LP token sit in their address, they take that LP token and lock it into a third contract, and that's the farming contract. That's what's going to inflate incentive token to pay you out. So like incentive token is, it's PulseX's incentive token is called INC for now. Sushi's is called sushi. Pancakes is called cake. On and so on down the road. Like, and then sometimes people build like Icosa like games on top of those incentive tokens. Like, you can just take your sushi or cake and dump it, or you can take your sushi and pair it with an ETH and get more sushi. It's just this game of like, will you make more dumping it now or holding it for a little longer? Usually, like, hint, word to the wise, usually dumping it now is better.
Hey guys, what's up? Can I ask a question about the pairing or the pairs? Once mainnet goes live, I know about 1 day, maybe 2 days pre-bridge, everything will be ratio traded. Did anybody say, or was it clear what the ratios would be? So for instance, some people are thinking about trading Pulse or PulseX into Hex and then RP Hex and vice versa. Is it clear what the ratio is going to be? Like, for instance, can I trade one PulseX for one PHEX once mainnet is live?
So on when version 3 of testnet opened right away, it was almost 1-to-1 between Pulse and PulseX. But within like an hour, it was like a 4-to-1, 3.5-to-1 ratio. Is that what's going to happen on mainnet? Or I don't know. So these are things. I mean, there's formulas that you can do. So like people have talked about this where they're going to figure out what the AMM bot is going to set the ratios at the time of the LPs of opening mainnet, depending on what Ethereum is versus every coin, right? So if there's an Ethereum pair, there will be a Pulse pair, right? But it's going to have to reset those ratios. 1,000 one side, 1,000 on the other. When we do 1,000x versus it's going to increase 1,000x on the other side to write those market cap wise. And so if you do that, you figure out that math for those, then you can figure out the ratios that ETH or whatever that. So let's say it's like ETH versus Hex, right? And you figure out the ratio that Pulse at this moment in time, right now, what Pulse will be versus Hex, according to what the AMM bot's going to do. 1,000 one way, 1,000 the other. Now you got the ratio of Pulse versus Hex, right? And now I'm being very general here, right? Again, this is math. So now you have that ratio of what Hex is versus Pulse. Now you can apply that to other tokens because Hex is going to be versus Icosta. Now you need to know, if you know what the price versus, like the ratio, what it would take to earn a Ethereum versus Icosta on that same amount of time, you can apply that into the equation versus the Hex versus Icosta, if you know what I mean. So you can create your own little cheat sheet if you want, but it's not going to be 100% correct because PulseChain isn't opening right now, and liquidity pools change, right? A lot of people are going to be pulling their liquidity the closer we get to PulseChain because they want the copies, right? And they don't want to have that impermanent loss on the PulseChain side versus if they just held the coins, right? So again, you can figure that out to a degree. It's just that it's going to take some math. You're going to have to figure out how the AMM bot works to set those ratios versus Ethereum or PulseChain, and then you got to apply that to the other coins that you're talking about. And so there's people that are creating like what's the program I'm thinking of? I can't think of it all of a sudden. The Python program that we all use, Excel. So they're creating Excel sheets with these ratios in there so that they can just plug in where something's at, and they'll have an approximate amount what it's worth in other tokens, according to the math that I just talked about. So it takes a lot of work, but once you figure it out, it's going to be very, very much worth your while come ratio trading time, right? Because you'll have an idea. You'll be better off than people that are just throwing stuff out there, right?
But the AMM fixer bot, once that runs, then the market or people within that are on mainnet that have coins to trade, they will start adjusting those ratios as they're trading or swapping, right? So it's not so maybe at one point it's constant, but it's going to move very quickly as people start trading. So yeah, I guess it really can change the calculus there.
Yep, so it's a fun. You got a lot of time and you got a big brain.
Humble your wreck, bro. And your background noise is evil.
It compares to the chickens.
We heard most of it, but you're starting to break up. What's this?
We love our bridges.
How did I become a co-host?
I don't know, man. That's crazy. Let's get Hex hang out to come and take a picture of the room. So we can
Probably the
it.
same way that women around you suddenly become pregnant.
All right, I got a phone call. Sorry, guys. I've
just testosterone.
Got to step down here.
Hopefully, I'm not too wrecked. I'm driving through a crappy area.
Bob, are you talking? We can't hear you.
We hear you, Bob. Thankfully,
motherfucker.
Pulling your nickel.
Thankfully, we hear Bob. Thanks for that insight on pooling. We have so many questions, and it's like such a fickle topic that no one really
Bob
wants
never
to
has anything
get
good
into.
to say. I don't know why you want to hear him.
Hey man, that's
Yeah,
great.
I'm not somebody that ever really knows everything about anything, but I know a little bit about a lot of things.
Famous. What happened to your head, man?
In other words, you're not a master.
I'm not even a master debater.
debating's overrated. Don't worry. Yeah, all these questions about like liquidity pooling and stuff is it's hard to follow. As I say, it's a very fickle topic that people don't really want to get into and explain in depth. We're lucky in this community; we kind of have a little bit of that. But even if you don't participate, providing liquidity, even understanding the way it works, can help you with your swaps and just understanding the way the market will flow. So don't feel like as if you're like missing out. If you're not providing liquidity, you're not getting fees, and oh, you're missing out on something. I mean, you'll miss out on loss if you don't understand how to proceed providing liquidity. So even just beginning to understand it is vital and will help you going forward. Even just understanding how to participate with swapping.
Well, Jay, so and didn't Tangent just come up with a hooked on phonics version? Some sort of a dummy down
I hope so.
algorithm.
That would be great.
Yeah, he did. I think just a couple of days ago, to where
Awesome.
if somebody wanted to go, or if someone were to go look and kind of get a little guidance in regards to how to provide liquidity without getting in permanent loss.
Damn, I can't hear chest, huh?
My bad, famous. You couldn't hear me?
That's Bulla. Yeah, Bulla, you don't hear chat.
Try again. I just disconnected my Bluetooth.
What kind of headphones are you using?
The John McCoy's.
No, what I was saying was I believe that Tangent came up with something a couple of days ago, a hooked on phonics or layman's term template to help you understand liquidity providing without incurring too much impermanent loss, if any at all.
Sounds like promises.
Not
There is a website that you can input it. I don't have it on me. It's at home.
Oh yeah,
There's
the
a website.
impermanent loss calculator. I think you might be referring to.
Yep.
Or there are probably a few of them, but there's one in particular that's who made it? I don't know. It's come up recently in the community, so that might be put that in the toolbox. And because like impermanent loss and or gain is inevitable. It's like you can't really avoid it, so it takes a lot of work and maintenance to understand. And your time frame is important, like understanding waiting out a particular phase, and understanding why that might be a great thing, even though you might be technically in loss for like a majority of your position.
Yeah, so LP is all kinds of like, you have these different competing things that you want. So like, as a holder of a token, I want the price to go up. But as a liquidity provider of a token, I would prefer that price just goes sideways. So if I'm a majority holder, yeah, great. Price goes up, that's fine. But for the price to go up, you need liquidity providers across the full range of the price. So you kind of get what I'm saying, where like really quickly, it's always like, well, screw the LP. I don't want LP. Nobody should LP, because as soon as you LP, you expose yourself to impermanent loss. but somebody's got to do it. Otherwise, the price doesn't move. Or there's so little amount of tokens for sale that every time somebody spends $1, it's spiking the price 5% up, and they sell $1 and it spikes it back down. So it's like this, another thing is like, as somebody that's if you're interested in earning the fees, it's against your own best interest to show other people how to join the pool. But for me, it's like, I don't know, like the fees are just kind of like a little bit extra. So, it's not that big of a deal. I'd rather have a functioning market of, many people providing liquidity than, only me and 3 other guys hogging all the fees, but we have to constantly shift liquidity around to try to keep the price like functional, some functional amount of liquidity in there.
Which begs the question is, who provides liquidity and why is V2 relevant? And so just so you guys know, liquidity providing used to be a whale type of before V3, it was a whale type of thing because whales could not get out of their position. They would lose so much money, like trying to sell all their coins, right? So what did they do instead? They provided V2 liquidity, meaning that if they had $300 million worth of coins that were at that right now, and the liquidity pool only provides 5 million, why would they sell it? So what they do is they would provide liquidity, meaning that as the price goes up, they're pulling out, they're gaining, like say USDC, they're gaining liquidity. They're not only getting paid fees, but when it goes up and down, they're earning all those fees also. But they can also start withdrawing some of the liquidity as well, in the form of where it's at. They provide V3 at one point if they want to. But it's the only way that they can get out of their position as a whale. And that's why you see a lot of V2 providers that are always there, because like McFlat said, is when they have that much, they're earning a large portion of that pool for one thing. But what else are they going to do with it, right?
I would almost say that V3 Uniswap V3 makes it more of a whale game, because with V2, if you don't already have the other side of the pair, you have to go somewhere and get an equal side of the pair. Like it's not efficient to, like I want to provide liquidity on Hex ETH. It's not really that efficient for me to launch a Hex through that pair to get ETH. Basically, I'm going to drive the price up against myself trying to get Ethereum, and then to just turn around and give that Ethereum right back in the form of an LP for, because basically I've just spiked the price of Ethereum, the Ethereum side of that ratio. I've made the Ethereum more rare, and then I'm basically running a charity at that point if I want to immediately re-add that ETH as a that's not an absolute, because maybe that maybe other people buy, but it's not too unlikely that I buy a bunch of the Ethereum out of the pool and then I go and re-add that as liquidity. What are people going to do? They're going to see the spike and they're going to sell it down. So I'm immediately at a net loss on that action. So I'd have to say I had Bitcoin off to the side. I have to go off to a centralized exchange and trade that Bitcoin for Ethereum and then bring that to the pair. Whereas with V3, if as long as both of my low price and my high price are above the current price, I only have to provide one side of that liquidity. I only have to provide the Hex, and then the Hex just sits there until the price ratio comes up and starts to enter my range, and that's when it'll start to swap through my liquidity.
Enter Aave and DMS. There you go. That's how they get it.
Right. Yeah. Same idea though. Right. You have to find some other on a V2 pair. You can't just have a bunch of one token and decide you're going to provide liquidity without having to go out and find the other side of whatever pair you're trying to join.
No, I get it. You're right. V3 is a whole other thing now. So if you're a whale that wants to get out, you can just set a liquidity at a higher range. let people buy into it, right? So no, I agree with you 100%. But at one point, that's how it was. It's the only way to be able to get out is to provide liquidity.
But in the general sense of LP being a whale game, quote unquote, yeah, usually because it's traditionally it's the people that have a lot that are willing to take the impermanent loss on a small fish taking impermanent loss on half of their stack is a lot different from a whale taking impermanent loss on like 0.1% of their stack, even though those two token counts might be exactly the same. And it's even better for the whale overall to take that impermanent loss on the small percentage if it facilitates the price moving up and raising the value of all the rest of those tokens that he holds.
That's kind of funny. I didn't realize that you guys could hear my phone call at the same time. My phone call could hear you guys.
It sounded like we could hear you fine, but there was also someone talking almost as loud as you right next to you.
Yeah, some kid got in. It was like pretty loud in back. Apologies.
So yeah, I'm never, so like I try to explain LP the best I can without it being too complicated. It's not something that's super easy to explain everything so that everybody gets it really quickly. But the basic thing is pretty much like Jussel said, there's always impermanent loss, especially when you're paired versus USDC or a stable coin of some other kind, because at least if you're paired with coin A and ETH or Pulse, then there's the possibility that even though people are taking away, for instance, your PulseX and leaving you Pulse in your LP, maybe your Pulse also goes up in value to a reasonable percentage, so that you're not sitting with a whole bunch of tokens that are worth way less than the tokens you gave up. But that's all that a permanent loss is. Like, so especially on a UniB2 pair, all that these swap contracts are automated sell contracts. They are constantly, every time somebody comes up to make a swap, they're taking a little bit of one thing you have and leaving you with a little bit of the thing they didn't want anymore. So they have Pulse, they want Hex, they pull K amount of Hex out, they leave Y amount of Pulse, and then they pull X and Y, and then the constant remains the same. So like I said, there's always that possibility or likelihood of impermanent loss. But really, like, until you get some tokens, and for me personally, like, you can ask people questions and try to understand it fully. It doesn't really like all the competing things like I was talking about, like, as an LP, you want the price to go sideways to get the most fees, to get the most volume and fees without changing your token count too drastically. But as a token holder, you want the price, those kind of competing things. A token holder, I'd rather the price goes up. There's several different examples of like competing things that you have to try to make your best. You can use an educated guess, you can use charts, you can try to define a range of where you think the price will stay and try to plan around that. But really, until you just get a hold of some tokens and spend the fees to go out and try it out, that's when it really sunk in for me.
What about like the idea picking your pairs, not just for profit, but just, let's say, for strategy? Like, let's say you're long on two assets, like you don't really care if you lose one compared to the other because you're confident they're both, like, let's say, a Hedron and a Hex pair. So what are your just ideas about like how to choose pairs or why in terms of maybe a longer term strategy and not just short term profit?
Yeah, that's like the general LP guidance. Like, probably not the best idea to LP where you're giving up something you really want versus something you really don't want. Some people say like, they never want to sell their house or they don't want to sell at this price, but somebody has to do it in order for the price to move. So, some people, it's pretty common for people to use V3 positions, something, kind of like a limit order, like, oh, I want to sell for this average price, so I'm going to set my price range here and just let it sit. And then once people push the price up to where it's past my hex position, now my LP has been completely converted from only hex to only USDC. So that's where, USDC, it's the dirty fiat, it's losing, X% of its purchase value every year. But if you need USDC, then maybe that's something you want to do. Where, if it's, some garbage coin that you're not confident about at all, or even maybe you're almost certain that it's going to zero, that's probably not something you want to LP with. But like I said, then again, there's always the other side of the coin, which would be, even if it's something that you think is going to go to zero, maybe you're wrong, or maybe it just has a lot of trading volume on a really tight range, so the fees are really lucrative. Like that's one scenario where it might make sense to LP for a little bit, but keeping in mind that there's always the risk that you lose 100% of the thing that you really didn't want to, and you end up with 100% of the thing that you really didn't want, and it also goes to zero.
So again, this comes into like another factor of like, what's your how far ahead are you looking? So like, you have somebody that's like, well, I plan on holding my pulse and my hex for, let's just say, for example, for 5 years, right? So what do we know about things? Hex just went down 90%. Let's just say if you wanted to do for, again, USDC coin, right? Hex just went down 95%, right? So what do I think is going to happen? Well, I think it's going to go up to $1.80, let's just say, right? And if I'm thinking ahead, and I thought it was going to do at least an 80% drop from there, I'd figure out where that is. And I'd be like, well, maybe that's where I want to provide my liquidity now, because in the next bear market, supposedly it'll drop at least 80% from its all-time high. So maybe that's where I would start my LPing versus USDC, meaning that it'll go up, all of it in permanent loss, but I'm planning on keeping it until the next bear market. It's going to come right back down to that point that I predicted, right? So now you don't have impermanent loss anymore. You're planning on holding it anywhere. I mean, that can be a strategy, right? So it all depends on, your knowledge, your planning, how long you plan on doing it. If you're just trying to exit, like we were talking about earlier, whales, where it's like, well, I'm just going to set a position at this point, and people buying will buy up my stack, and I'll exit them. So there's different reasons to provide LP, and it's different. It all depends on you, your stack, what you want to happen, what you want to hold at the end, what you think the market's going to do, how long you want to provide an LP for, right? So there's a lot of ways you can do this, but like Ja and Nickelback are talking about, there's you can lose money doing it too. Not so much as have less money, it's just you won't have as much as if you just would have held your coin, right? So keep all this in mind.
Yeah, another good, for me personally, a good rule of thumb is like, don't panic if things go way outside of your range. I give it like a week to 2 weeks, because it's not too uncommon that it comes back in range.
I had a friend who was learning how to provide liquidity, and he panicked. I think it was between Hex and Hedron, and there was like a fight, right? And he thought for sure it was like something to do with the Hedron wall, and so he just panic sold. And then about an hour later, it went back to normal, and so he had to buy it back in, and he ended up losing a crap load of Hex by doing that, because he wasn't providing like a real small amount, but because of like doing that like 3 times, because he panicked, he went from like holding like at that position, whatever it was versus Hedron. Let's say he was using a million Hex. By panicking 3 times, that million Hex position versus Hedron at that point turned into like 650,000 Hex versus the same amount of Hedron, because they panicked, sold at impermanent loss parts. They thought it was going to get worse, and then it went back to normal. And he learned really quick not to do that anymore. So, like Nick Beck says, learn from those mistakes. Don't do that. Don't react emotionally and do something that if you just would have waited, you wouldn't have risked losing that amount of whatever you're using for an LP. So that's real life. That actually happened by a friend of mine. He was LPing, and I said, hey man, I told him, I go, hey, just chill, don't look at it, it's gonna get volatile. And he did, and he panicked, and he sold, and then went back to normal, and he bought back in, and he's like, I didn't realize it, but I just lost 200,000 Hex. Permanent loss,
Yeah, that's rough. And that's why it's called impermanent, because it's not permanent until you pull the LP. That's when your impermanent loss becomes permanent. So like imagine somebody back when Hex was only trading on Uni V2. V3 didn't exist yet. So somebody joined the pool, say around a penny. And then they diamond handed that LP all the way up to 50 some cents, and then all the way back down to 3 cents. They would go right back almost down to their original token count. It's going to be a little different because there's a 1 cent to 3 cent doesn't sound like a lot, but it's a overall percentage is a big jump. But to offset that, you'd have a year and a half worth of the volume fees from basically providing the liquidity to all those people to facilitate that trading all the way up to 50 cents and back down. So that's really that's what you're going for with LP, but you never know how high it can go, and you never know how low it can go. So I think you were saying earlier, like you could avoid impermanent loss by trying to hold on to USDC and wait until it looks like the top.
That's not avoiding. That's just trying to plan ahead.
Okay, I was gonna explain. Just to clarify a little bit. I think what you were describing was holding on to USDC. In that Hex example, you would have waited until the price peaked out at about 50 cents, and then you put your USDC underneath from 50 cents all the way down to minus 90%.
It would be like, okay,
or 95%.
Let's say that let's say the bottom was 1.7 cents, right? That was the bottom. And let's say that now, judging by, TA or whatever, history for Bitcoin and Ethereum stuff, like, okay, Fibonacci, just to say you get that information, it's like, oh, we're looking between $1.80 to $5, right? Well, I would find the range of 80% down from there. That range, and I'd find a range right there. And that's when I would, if I was using USDC versus Hex, so 80% down from, say, $2, right, would be what, $50%, another 50, so that'd be about 40 cents, right? So I'd be like, all right, I'm going to start providing at 40 cents. So now I put in my USDC or my Hex there. Let's just say it's V3 position. I put 100% and I'm holding a Hex right there, right? Versus USDC. So now it would have to be USDC in that scenario. No, at 40 cents is where I'm putting my to sell hex for USDC.
Oh, I got you.
Right. So
On the way
what
up.
happens here?
I thought you were talking about the way down.
All right. So now what happens here? The bull run hits, right? Now all of a sudden we got less hex. We're earning more USDC, but we're having impermanent loss if we would have just sold it at. And it continues to go up to like $1.80, right? And instead of selling it right there, instead of providing liquidity, we have less money, right? But I wasn't planning on selling. I'm planning on holding it. So now the bear market happens, right? And let's just say it goes down to, you know, another 90% drop. So now it goes down to 30 or 20 cents, right? So I go all the way back down to 40 cents. I get all my hex back, but I get all those fees as well. So I just earned yield out by LPing and providing it. So I don't have LP loss anymore. This is just a strategy that you guys can do if you wanted to. There's people that do this as well. They just plan what the next bull market's going to do, and they set a range between 40 cents and like $5. The bull market happens, the bear market comes back, it drops below 40 cents. They got all their hex back plus their fees. They've got fees that pay in USDC, and they got fees in hex. That's all I was saying. So be more specific. The strategy that people can do.
Yeah, most people would say that it would be irrational to leave all of your USDC liquidity all the way up to $5. Most LPs would say, you know, in the interest of capital efficiency, once the price has moved so far beyond, you know, so far beyond my original 40-cent entry, like say, you know, halfway to $5, I would pull like 50% of the liquidity and hold that off to the side, and then wait for the price to peak and then drop. Because otherwise, you know, you're giving up purchasing power. Like the further up that you buy, the more purchasing power you give up. But that's just one of the like other side of the coin. It's not really an absolute thing.
Yeah. So there you go. You took it one step further. You know, I was just doing different. When I brought it up, I was just giving different examples of how different strategies work or what different people are. You know what I mean? So I wasn't really trying to go too deep into it, but you're right. You know, there you go. You guys just got more alpha there on one strategy.
Yeah, it's like almost everything you can think of. It's a teeter-totter, you know, what you want versus what the counteraction is, and what you have to give up to get it. You know, what you want versus what you have to give up. What's the value here versus what's the competing value over there? And you can't really have it both ways. You got to pick which one, you know, and sometimes you get it wrong. Sometimes it works out great.
There's another example, right? So we're just thinking about the fees. Let's say it's like yield, right? So we were talking about ICOSA earlier, right? So we were talking about compounding. So when the POW, proof of stake and the proof of work fork happened, I had ICOSA staked, right, that I haven't touched and I haven't compounded. But I haven't had to pay attention to it either, right? Versus the ones that I've been compounding. Now the compounding ones I've been paying attention to, and I've been, you know, doing the work to make sure that I'm compounding it. Now I have more ICOSA there, and more ICOSA that are staked because of it. But on the other one, when I just left and forgot about, I have my original principal, and then I have a buttload of ICOSA as well. Not as much as my compounded one, but it's there, and I didn't have to worry about it. I didn't have to think about it, but it was there. And it's the same thing when it comes to LPing that we're talking about. You can be somebody that moves liquidity back and forth all over, and you'll earn more fees and have less impermanent loss. Or you can be somebody that, you know, that didn't forget that has like a V2 type position, right? And you don't have to worry about all that stuff. You don't have to be at your computer worried about impermanent loss to that degree and moving your LP back and forth. It's just there, and you're earning less, right? You've got impermanent loss, but you're also earning fees, and you're not stressed about it. So again, it depends on you, right? So that goes with just an example. You know, I have two things set up. One I didn't pay attention to that's just been earning by itself, and I have another one that have been compounding, right? So there's more to it. Don't get me wrong. There's more people doing stuff on ICOSA, on the Ethereum main Ethereum versus the proof of work, right? So there's more inflation on one than the other as well. I usually do that. all depends on you guys.
Yep.
The risk you're
Yep.
willing to
Like,
take.
do you wanna spend more time and pay more attention and spend more in gas fees, moving everything around, or recompounding, or whatever, or do you want to just leave it alone and get what you get? Because there's because the set it and forget it might be really valuable to some people, where they don't really care about trying to get 10% more net by the time they spend all the, if they consider that their time is valuable, so they should, consider, they should mark down or keep track of how much time they spend doing all this, and sort of back that out of their profit, because it's not free to sit staring at a computer moving all this stuff around. And also you're gonna, basically every time you click, you're gonna pay, what, 5, 10, 20 bucks, $50 if the fees are really high and you're talking about V3 liquidity. So yeah, versus just, I'm just gonna take my one token or two tokens, set a super wide price range, and walk away from it for like 2 years. There's nothing wrong with that either, if that's what you want to do.
And then you got somebody like J Money down there, or like Hexyquin is laughing at all of us, saying, I just held my coins. I didn't provide liquidity, and I have more money than all you guys now. So no impermanent loss. Just so yes, there's nothing wrong with not providing liquidity either. Definitely.
Well, more money for that amount of tokens.
Right.
Because that's all that impermanent loss really is, especially when you're talking about the USDC pair. Impermanent, really, when it comes to the USDC pair, impermanent loss is just the difference of how much you sold on average across your LP versus what you might have sold if you timed the top. That's kind of like, I mean, I know it's not like the perfect technical description of it, but it's pretty close. It's, hey, I thought the price was only going to go to 75 cents. So I set my LP from, 60 to 75. So my average sell price is somewhere in the mid 60 cents per token, but the actual price went to $3. Oh, whoops. But at the same time, like I said, somebody's got to be there with the liquidity. Otherwise the price won't move up through those ranges. And even better if you're only risking, 1 or 2%. In general, risking a large portion to play LP games is you're taking more risk.
Anybody else want to come up and speak? Feel free to. You got questions for Mr. Nickelback here? Come on up, ask him.
Or for anybody. I'm just one dude.
Hey, Nickelback.
Sprackberg.
Close enough.
What's up?
Just a comment, and I'll be out of the way. I recently signed up for Access Alive. He's doing a liquidity providing course. Believe it's like a 2-part series. It's paid, so you have to pay for it. But he's been doing a lot of research in that area. He's been doing a lot of information and educational products on that. Probably a good place to look if you're starting from zero and want to get some information from I guess somebody who's been doing it for a minute. Uh, that's all. Just wanted to mention that in case anyone's interested. Go to Axis Alive. He's doing that with Crypto Sloth, and those are good people in the community. That's all.
Yeah, he's probably got way more LP experience than me. Like basically everything I know is from personal experience and some looking up videos and reading some of the docs.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Bob. Thank you for that clarification, though. For real, for real.
yeah,
Buddy, you're welcome.
folks like Axis and Sloth and Bob Lagai, if you can find him, are incredible resources of knowledge. And yeah, it's a really fickle topic and kind of risky, and it's really not for everyone. But understanding it more again will just help you even just swapping and understanding the way the market will move and does move. So. How much are they asking for?
I think it was about $100.
And part
I
of like
think
an
it's
ongoing group, and that's might be
no, it's
like one-time course.
It's a one-time course. It's broken up into 2 sessions. I think 2-hour sessions, and they're kind of action-packed, and they take you from 0 to hero. So even if you have a little bit of LP experience, it would benefit just to see how they're doing their things, and they're building tool sets, and that's kind of another aspect of the value that they're adding is they're building tools that allow us to view liquidity on charts and sort of strategize where you want to put your liquidity, where other people are putting their liquidity, what you think price action is going to do to confluence with that. Combining technical analysis with that liquidity providing tools. So yeah, they're going to have something where it's like if you in person videos, and then if you missed it, you get the recordings of it. And I think they're going to also have some time for like an AMA where you can ask all the questions you want, or I've tried this thing and this didn't work out like I planned, and here's what you did wrong, and that kind of guidance. So I think it's valuable.
They could probably charge $1,000 and it would still be worth the information, just for the fact that you have the opportunity to ask that question you just can't find an answer for anywhere else. Like $100, heck, I would. Well, one, I'm not super experienced with LP. Like I've got about a year in, little less than a year. So, and again, most of the stuff I know is like listening to other people and doing it myself. So there's no way that I could possibly know everything. I'm sure that there's gaps in my knowledge that like I'm sure there's stuff that I don't even know that I don't know that I could pick up there. So that like $100 sounds like, again, LP is not for everybody, but if you think it is, that sounds like a steal to me.
Yeah, so like the cool thing about the Access and Slot is you're not only learning how to LP, you're learning TA with them too, because they do it with TA. They do it by support and resistances. And so you'll learn a whole nother part of it and how to apply it to your liquidity pool providing. And if you don't know what support and resistances are, you'll get to learn that. That's worth it alone as well. So yeah, they take it a whole step farther on it. So I mean, I know that from people that have paid for their access to what they offer whenever they have it, I haven't met somebody that hasn't been glad that they spent the money for it. I'm not saying that this is the case now too, but judging by their past and what they provide for value, people really are happy with what they get for information and value that's been provided in the past for stuff that they've been involved in. So. And you guys probably just got like $80 worth of it from Nickelback today.
Bob freaking know-it-all, the guy. Actually. But seriously, like I said, my disclaimer is that I seriously almost make a point of not knowing everything about anything, but I try to know a little bit about a lot of things. So don't just take my word for it. Ask around.
Yeah, I've got a non-LP question. Anybody here familiar with Shamir backup? And is that only available on Trezor Tees?
I think they have a built-in Shamir, but you can apply Shamir yourself anywhere and or any other cipher method you choose. But I believe Ledger, yeah, like they do have something where you like it incorporates it in, in and as you set up your wallet there. Have you ever used Shamir? Have you ever messed with that?
A little bit, but I'm generating a new wallet that has a larger sum, and this is more on like the retirement account type of stuff. And I'm going with like a 5 share device that has a 3 threshold. That way I could split up the seed into 5 different locations, and if 2 of them are compromised, the other 3 can back it up, and I'll have to use this Schmear. But I'm thinking the Model T, I probably have to go with that just to make it easier, not necessarily for me, but for someone else that may need to activate the wallet in case I'm indisposed. But yeah, it's just doing some of the research, and I think the T might be a good choice.
I mean, I could be mistaken, but it doesn't matter what model you choose. But in terms of interacting with it and the UI, I mean, it makes a difference physically. But in terms of what you want to do, it won't matter at all. Like you want, like, don't think of like, oh, in 20 years, I'm going to hand off this Model T to whomever, right? And they're going to take it. And it's all this stuff is on blockchain, and the Shamir is like how you would, arrange your access to your phrases. So it's not the individual model I would consider for your long-term strategy, if you know what I'm saying. Even though they do offer that specific service and setting it up, it just as a customer. So I'm just saying, like, the concept of Shamir and the concept of doing this is it's ubiquitous across just your life and across whatever device you choose. Trezor, Ledger. I mean, there aren't any others we recommend, but like, don't get caught up into like a particular one needing to be with Ledger because of their offering today, because offerings will change in the future. And just, that's more like your relationship with your seeds, not your relationship with Ledger or a particular device.
As far as a Model T in particular, I think those still default to 12-word seed phrases. I think they're capable of 24-word, but you have to like load up and use like a command, like a command prompt type, like a manual text entry to tell it to generate a 24-word seed. Other than that, I would caution anything that has to use your computer screen to display the Shamir tranches. Otherwise, if it only displays on the screen of the Model T, that sounds pretty good. But any kind of software that's like going to take your seed words and bring it in and display it on the screen, that's going to be less secure than just keeping it completely doing the generation on the device itself. Just because, you know, even if it's a brand new device and it's never been used for, like a brand new laptop, never used for anything else, you know, antivirus scans completely clean, there's still a non-zero chance that your seed data might leak while it's being pulled in and displayed on that laptop screen. And I'm not saying it's even a 1% chance or even a 0.0001% chance, but kind of comes down to a balance of how long do you really want this stuff to be secured with near 100% peace of mind? Or, you know, and is it worth it to get that extra 0.001% peace of mind by doing everything on the secure device itself versus, you know, the some percentage of risk of having those words, those seed data words displayed on the screen?
Thanks, guys. I'm going to jump off. Appreciate all the help. You guys do great information. Thank you.
Thank you for coming up. Appreciate it.
So is Jay Money a speaker or what's up, bro? Or is it just lagged out for me?
I think he's legged out for you. He's a listener.
Somebody
I've seen
has the
him as a
Midnight
speaker.
Gospel profile picture.
Anybody else that has any comments or questions, come on up here. This is how people learn, and those that are a little bit more shyer, they have questions, may not want to ask them, but the information that these guys provide for the subject that you guys bring up can really help the community and those that are newer to this community. Like we said earlier, people don't know what they don't know. So you guys got a subject that you want to talk about and some knowledge that you want to reap from these guys up here. Request the speaker, hit the little mute button or microphone button down there, and come on up here and go ahead and ask it or bring it up.
Did you call me up, Mello?
Yeah, what's up, bro?
What's up, dude?
How you been, man?
Not too bad. Just working today. Got the speaker on, listening to you guys talk.
Man, you guys doing some crazy shit over there, man.
Where?
Where? On the carpet ride.
Gotta be specific, bro.
Damn, bro, you all over the place, ain't you? I know it.
Yes, sir. Yep. Got my feet wet and a few things.
Did y'all go get y'all domain? Y'all need to go get that post domain ASAP. Since since y'all do the part pulls.
Yeah. I know Famous secured a few of them for us. I think he got the steakhouse and MCR already, and then sent them to Ty. What you been up to? How you doing?
I've been alright, man. Just been building, waiting for some things to finish. I got this little vacation house that I'm trying to build, in the mountains in Georgia. So I'm just been just chilling, man, doing my work. I'm trying to get this dirty fiat so I can put it in more into the crypto, spread the word around my community in real life.
Sounds like you're living the dream.
Well, I'm trying to. I'm not there yet. I just have problems with, working for someone, so it's just a little harder for my age.
Well, shoot, man, I'm gonna go back down to listener. I got some more work to do here today. Working for the other guy, like you said. It's just a good time.
Nah, man, you're about to stop soon.
Oh yeah, no, it's coming. It's
And,
coming.
and sorry, I was commenting on this midnight gospel profile picture. So sorry.
Oh, all good.
Good morning, Famous.
He's out shilling real estate.
Shane Shu is blowing up. We got Ivan on tech tweeting at Richard asking about him.